What is up, ladies and gents? In today's video, we're going to be talking all about Swftcoin. We're going to be discussing what we are seeing here right now on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for Swftcoin over the coming days, as well as my price target for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you all here. So we're going to dive straight into this video, and we're going to start off with the short-term stuff here on Swftcoin. We're on the 1 hour chart right now, and if I get the annotations back up here on the screen, this is the sort of picture that I am seeing here in the shorter term. Now, of course, to start with, we had this beautiful pump here on Swftcoin that obviously took the prices here of a low of around 0.7 cents to a high there of around 2 cents. So we nearly saw a 3x in this space of time. Now, of course, we've seen a bit of a retracement since that point, and that's pretty natural. You know, of course, when we see quite a quick pump like this, we do expect people to be taking profits. But of course, the selling pressure here on Swftcoin has considerably diminished, which is a very nice sign. You can see that, for example, when we sold off over here, we saw quite a lot of red bars down on the trading volume down here. So that was quite a lot of selling pressure. But as we've seen the prices kind of bouncing in between these two trend lines that I'm going to talk about in a second, the trading volume has decreased. So that's kind of the first bullish thing that I am seeing here. And secondly, what we're also seeing here on Swftcoin is this falling wedge type pattern. Of course, as you can see, we've got two trend lines here on Swftcoin at the moment, both of them pointing downwards. We've got this upper resistance here that's been tested on 5 different occasions, as you guys can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, making this quite a strong resistance, and we've got a support here that's been tested on 4 different occasions. So we've got this falling wedge pattern, which is bullish. So I'm monitoring the Swftcoin chart quite closely right now, guys, because as you can see, the prices are quite close to this upper resistance, and if we do see a breakout to the upside, we could be looking at this as our price target. Of course, we've got the first test of support to the first test of resistance, the distance between them. We drag that to wherever we see a breakout. And of course, we could be expecting a 44% pump here on Swftcoin. But that is not all, because what we saw before this falling wedge was this big parabolic move here on Swftcoin. This was obviously a 3x in a very short space of time. And so we can also treat this falling wedge as kind of a consolidation, like a bull flag in a parabolic move. And of course, if we treat it as such, we could expect an even larger price target, which would be the distance from the start of the parabolic move down here all the way to the point where it entered into the falling wedge. And of course, if that does occur, then we see this extended price target here on Swftcoin of 2.4 cents. So of course, the first price target can be considered 1.9 cents, stemming from a normal falling wedge pattern. And of course, if prices continue to rise past 1.9 cents, we could see 2.4 cents next, stemming from the fact that this could be treated as more of a bull flag type pattern. So of course, if you are looking for a great place to trade any breakout here on Swftcoin, then look no further than the MEXC exchange. This is the exchange that I use for all my trading because they have some of the lowest trading fees. They don't require KYC to get started, and for a limited time only, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link down below a free $20. So if you want to make use of this offer, again, click in the link in the description down below, fill out your details. Takes less than a minute to do so. Deposit some cash or crypto into your account, and then they'll give you that money straight away. Of course, guys, thank you for all of your support. Let's get back into this video. And so this is a shorter term thing we can look forward to here on Swftcoin. Of course, as I said before, the prices are actually really close to this upper resistance here. So it could be just within a few hours before we might see a breakout. So if you are a shorter term trader, make sure you are paying attention. Of course, what we want to see is an increase in trading volume as the prices break past its resistance. And if this move does actually happen, we should see quite a swift pump here on Swftcoin to that price target. Something as swift as what we saw back on the 9th of April when we pumped 3x in about 24 hours. So that's kind of the speed that I'm anticipating if we do see a breakout. So quite exciting times here. Of course, from our trusty indicators as well, we're also getting some really nice signals. First and foremost, the moving averages here on Swftcoin, the prices did actually bounce from them, these blue lines, and now that's why we've seen a little bit of a pump. So that's very, very nice. Here on the MACD and the RSI as well, we've got two nice buy signals. The MACD showing us a crossover just a few hours ago, and the RSI coming out of an oversold region. So again, another buy signal from the RSI. You can see that every time we've come out of an oversold region, the prices have managed to pump quite a little bit. At the end of March, for example, we can see that that had occurred, and we saw a pump in Swftcoin. Again, on the 7th of April, exactly the same thing happened. A little pump after we came out of oversold on the RSI. And so right now, we are coming out of oversold on RSI again, so we can expect quite a bit of a pump here on Swftcoin. So now the only thing that stands in the way here for Swftcoin to be going up is what is coming out later this evening. Of course, in about an hour's time from making this video, we've got this Fed Chair Powell speech. So this is going to move the markets quite a lot. Depending on what is said during the speech, it could either be bullish or bearish, but in any which case, it's going to bring a lot of volatility. So do be careful out there if you are trading. Basically, for us at Swftcoin, this speech is important in the context that there's increasing global liquidity. And generally speaking, when we see global liquidity increase, we generally tend to see crypto go up as well. This is a graph of the correlation between Bitcoin and the global liquidity, and you can see there's a very strong correlation between them. Of course, Bitcoin is quite correlated with the rest of cryptocurrency as well. So by extension, we see that global liquidity is correlated to the prices here in crypto. And what we're seeing right now is global liquidity is increasing. And generally speaking, sooner rather than later, we should start to see prices in crypto go up. Of course, this speech, that's coming out in about an hour's time is basically talking about the interest rates. Is basically talking about the economy of the USA. And essentially, if what is discussed is basically along the lines of we're happy to drop interest rates sooner rather than later, or anything along those vibes, that's going to be very bullish for the market, because more likely than not, that's going to increase liquidity, and therefore the prices of crypto are going to go up. But on the contrary, if this meeting is more cautious, if there's a lot of talk about inflation still being a problem, and anything bearish, anything along those lines, that's going to reduce the likelihood of interest rate cuts, and therefore it's going to also limit the amount of liquidity that's in the market, and generally speaking, the prices would dump on that news. So that's the kind of context of why these Fed speeches are generally quite important. Of course, again, that's coming out in an hour's time. Once that is out of the way, we could see quite a bit of a market reaction here, depending on how it goes. But over the longer term, in any which case, as the global liquidity is increasing, I would expect the prices on Swftcoin here to start rising over the longer term as well. Of course, I've been keeping my eye on these Fibonacci levels as places where I might expect Swftcoin to reach in 2025. You can see why I love these fib levels. Swftcoin generally tends to respect them quite well. Of course, for example, we saw the prices use this 0.236 fib here as a place of support and resistance as the prices has been trading. We can see that prices did pump here on Swftcoin to nearly the 0.618 fib and retraced all the way back down to use this 0.382 fib as a support. So these fib levels here, resulting from the pump that we had in January 2025, can be used to predict how high Swftcoin could go. And so the three targets for me that I'm paying attention to here on Swftcoin in the longer term, so this of course is not likely to happen over the next few days, this is what I'm talking about for 2025. I expect the first target for Swftcoin to be this fib here at 8.4 cents. Of course, the next target, if we can crash past this target here, is 11 cents on Swftcoin. And the golden fib, the most important fib here, is telling us that we could potentially see a price on Swftcoin of 17 cents. So that's my upper 2025 target here for Swftcoin. Like I say, this is not something short term, this is something longer term. But I do think the markets are pointing us in the right direction. And of course, at the end of the day, to reach these targets, we need favorable conditions here in crypto. So what I want to see throughout the rest of crypto is Bitcoin making new all-time highs. This is going to be basically the trigger for altcoins like Swftcoin to do extremely well. Of course, right now we are still stuck in this downtrend, although we are very close to this upper resistance line. We are still in a downtrend, but we are seeing a massive bullish divergence between the MACD and the RSI for Swftcoin on the one-day chart. So this, in my opinion, is very bullish. It could hint at a trend reversal in the near future. And over the next few weeks and months, I expect Bitcoin to be making new all-time highs. And if that happens, that should also be very, very good for us here in Swftcoin. Of course, as Bitcoin is making new all-time highs, we start to see the fear in greed index lean more towards greed and extreme greed. At the moment, we are still in fear, so the market sentiment is still generally on average more negative than it is positive. But when we start to see extreme greed return to the markets, that is going to be the perfect environment for Swftcoin to do massive pumps. So very exciting prospects here for Swftcoin, both in the shorter term and the longer term. Of course, one last thing as well that I am noticing is basically the difference between Swftcoin and Onyxcoin that we are seeing right now. Of course, if you know this channel, I cover both of these tokens, and generally speaking, they both move very similarly. For example, if we have a look here on Onyxcoin, we can see that we've had this 3-month long downtrend from January. Same here with Swftcoin, exactly the same downtrend. We saw a pump just a few days ago, very similar here to Onyxcoin. And so what we've seen here on Onyxcoin is this kind of retracement, a bit the same that we saw on Swftcoin, but Swftcoin is up 4% for the day, whereas Onyxcoin is down 8%. So we're seeing a little bit of a decoupling right now, which tells me that maybe people are rotating their profits from Onyxcoin into Swftcoin. Now, of course, this could be a nice trigger for a breakout here on Swftcoin to go to the upside. Of course, if we do see that pump here on Swftcoin, the correlation between them tells us that we should also see a pump on Onyxcoin. But if that doesn't happen, that would be quite significant in my opinion. So that's also something to watch out for if you are a holder here in both. Basically, the relationship between them is normally that they're very, very strongly correlated, but every now and then we see this disconnect. And of course, here on XCN, we don't see that same bullish pattern that we do on Swftcoin. So quite interesting actually to note. Of course, at the end of the day, we can kind of try and draw a falling wedge here on XCN, but we don't have the same strength in the support or the resistance here. So yeah, basically just something interesting to note. Of course, that's pretty much all I wanted to say in this video here for Swftcoin. Of course, I'm paying close attention to the charts at the end of the day. We're very, very close to breaking out at this point. If we do see that breakout, remember the price target is 1.9 cents. And if we can continue going past that 1.9 cents level, next price target there is 2.4 cents, resulting from this extended kind of bull flag type pattern that we could be seeing here on Swftcoin. Of course, let me know down in the comments if you are holding Swftcoin. And otherwise, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.